With the end of the academic year right around the corner, there's only one thing on everyone's mind. That's right, the Stanley Cup playoffs. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Penn State Sportsnet. I'm Josh Bartosik, joined alongside Jacob Cheris and Adrianna Gallucci, and we are here to dive deep into the most grueling playoff season out of any sport. Now, guys, we are not even really one full round into the playoffs, and there's already been a lot of storylines emerging and a lot of surprises already. It seems like we talk about this every year, but Jacob, I'll start with you. What's one team that has really caught your eye early on in these playoffs?
3 words, Josh. Release the Kraken. The Seattle Kraken have been playing like a team. And the Stanley Cup playoffs are all about how you play as a collective unit. You roll 4 lines, you roll 3 D pairs, and you have a standout goalie. Seattle's doing that right now, and no one really expected them, especially competing against the defending Stanley Cup champion in the Colorado Avalanche. What stands out about this team is their depth. They have a lot of guys that have a lot of points right now. Justin Schultz, Jared McCann, Jordan Eberle, Yanni Gord, even Jamie Alexiak is having a great postseason. He scored a goal the other night. And, of course, you can't forget about Matty Beniers. And in goal, Philip Grubauer is having a fantastic bounce-back year. And he knows he played for Colorado when he was a finalist for the Vezina Trophy. And he's just been phenomenal. So I don't think a lot of people expected them to be this competitive with Colorado. I don't think they beat Colorado just because they have that experience and that really high-end talent. But I'm loving what I'm seeing out of Seattle right now.
Raleigh, your team's up 3-1 on the Islanders. I'm going with the Carolina Hurricanes. And it's not, they're not surprising to me because they did finish first in the Metro, but I'm surprised that they're able to do this well with all the injuries that they sustained. Guys like Andrei Svechnikov, who were out in the regular season, to guys like Teuvo Teravainen and Jack Drury, who took a really hard hit the other day. So even with those injuries, they're finding guys like Seth Jarvis and Mackenzie McEachern who are able to step up. And, I mean, we're going to have to see what happens in that Canes-Islanders series. Whoever wins that is going to have to face either New Jersey or the New York Rangers. So that's going to be another great Metro matchup anyways, but I think Carolina can hold their own.
Yeah, I like both of those picks. I mean, Seattle, in their second year, it's a lot different than in Vegas, right, where they kind of made it and made this deep run. No one really expected Seattle to be in this spot and to win Game 1 and basically almost win Game 3 in Climate Pledge Arena out in Seattle was an incredible atmosphere. And for Carolina, I mean, you mentioned the injuries. Going into this series, a lot of people expected that to be the most competitive matchup and thought that the Islanders had a chance to win. If they could stay out of the box, maybe, but Carolina right now looks really good. Mackenzie McEachern out of nowhere has become this guy in one playoff game that's seemingly turned that series around. They finally won a playoff game on the road. It had been 9 games before then when they had done it. And I think you talk about the East a lot in those Metro matchups. I mean, the East right now is a grueling battle. So is the West. I mean, so many matches were even at 1 apiece or 2-1 and very closely contested. So I think on both sides it'll be great. But obviously, you know, when it comes, you get surprises every year. But with surprises comes disappointment, and there have been, honestly, a lot of disappointing teams so far. So, Adrianna, I'll go to you first. What is a team that's just really not stood up to expectations this year so far?
Look, as a native New Jerseyan, I'm a supporter of all things New Jersey. Taylor ham, mac, and cheese, the popular MTV show Jersey Shore, and, of course, the boss Bruce Springsteen. But New Jersey Devils, they've looked terrible so far in this postseason. And now these guys finished second in the Metro, right? They had that tough race with Carolina themselves, and then New York, who kind of fell out of that race and ended up in third. But for somebody who finished second in the Metro, you can't win games just relying on your power play unit and relying on those overtime wins. So Dougie Hamilton, right, scored that overtime winner against the New York Rangers, and everybody went crazy. The guys who were calling the game said that New Jersey was back in this. New Jersey's not back in this until New Jersey ties that series. New Jersey's not back in this until they can find a way to score with all of New York's guys on the ice or find a way to win in regulation. Also, guys, just found this out before the show, but breaking news, Devils owner Josh Harris is set to step away as Chris Kreider now owns the New Jersey Devils. 5 goals in 3 games so far for this guy. Chris Kreider's an absolute scoring machine, and unless New Jersey finds a way to stop this guy, they don't stand a chance against New York. And I hate to put all of my luck into one player, but with a guy like Chris Kreider who's become Mr. New York all of a sudden, I don't see it happening for the Devils.
Yeah, I agree with you. I will say, though, towards the end of Game 3, the Devils did look a lot better compared to where they were blown out 5-1 at home. They didn't even look like they were ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs. My disappointing team is they were my favorites to win the Cup, and that's the Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid, the guy who had 150 points, he's looked human. He's been shut down. Except, Leon Draisaitl has been a beast, but you want the best player in the world putting up elite numbers and being an impact in the playoffs. He did have 3 assists last night against the Kings, but the Oilers were down 3-0 against the LA Kings, a team that they kept it competitive last year when these two teams played each other. But for a team that has top 2 scorers in the league, and they just got to be a lot better, more consistent. You can't rely on that historic power play that they've had that's over 30%. So they've looked better. It was really only in that second period of Game 3 that they really started to find their game. But the Oilers have really, really been disappointing for me so far, and they're lucky that this series is tied because LA easily could have taken a 3-1 lead.
Yeah, look, I think both those teams in this offseason got a lot better. The Kings got Kevin Fiala, a big acquisition. The Oilers at the trade deadline got a bunch of pieces. Matthias Ekholm. Stuart Skinner has really come into his own in the playoffs. But it is shocking to see how slowly this team starts. It happened last year. McDavid only had 1 goal through the first 4 games and then picked it up at the last 3. And
he's doing it now.
They're doing it again. He's repeating history, right? And for the New Jersey Devils, that's breaking news to me. It does really seem like Chris Kreider does own the entire state of not just New York and New Jersey. They really got to figure that out because this is a New York power play that is absolutely stout versus a New Jersey power play that's really been struggling. And right now, the Devils are still winning Game 4 1-0, but that could change in the blink of an eye. And if they don't go back to Prudential Center with that series tied, it could be night-night for the Devils in what originally was a historic season. But we'll go over to the final part, and it is the playoffs. And obviously, we love to make hot takes. It's kind of our thing here, right? So, Cheris, I'll throw it back to you. What's one hot take you have for the rest of these playoffs going forward?
Well, I was skeptical on this because we say it every year. But I think it's the year Toronto gets over the hump. And not only that, they go all the way. You watch Game 3. It was a gutsy win. They were a minute down from losing that game. They could have folded. They didn't. Ryan O'Reilly scored with a minute left, and then Toronto stole that game in overtime. Tampa pretty much dominated that entire overtime period, and Toronto found a way to win. Gritty teams, good teams, find ways to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and Mitch Marner is having the best postseason of his career. How many times when we talk about Toronto, when they lose, have we said their star players haven't showed up? Mitch Marner is one of their star players, Willie Nylander as well, and he has been absolutely fantastic. Goaltending is still a little shaky. Ilya Samsonov versus a giant in Andrei Vasilevsky, but I think this is the year Toronto finally gets it done. They exercise their demons and go all the way.
I agree with you. From what Toronto has shown, and even we see those really chippy moments with Toronto and Tampa Bay. So with the team that has grit and a team that has heart, they can take that a long way. But I'm not calling myself biased at all. Disclaimer, I am not biased at all. This is purely solely what I think. I have exercised many, many different options, but the team that I see maybe making it a little further, maybe even the Stanley Cup Finals, just to say, the New York Rangers. And listen, because there's some value here. This has been the first New York super team we have seen in a while. That first line, they've got the Krejci-Benedetto duo, obviously. They've got their trade acquisition in Patrick Kane, and then they've got Artemi Panarin and Adam Fox. Going back to those trade acquisitions, it's not Patrick Kane I want to highlight. It's Vladimir Tarasenko, who seemingly came out of nowhere in that infamous Sammy Blais trade that I love to mention so much every time.
What does he even do?
He doesn't do anything. But I figured since I'm here with Jacob Cheris, I might as well mention Sammy Blais anyways. But in that trade, Tarasenko, in that regular season, from his time in New York, 21 points in 31 games. So for somebody who's moved around from the first, second, and even the third line, he's produced a lot for New York. You look in the net. Igor Shesterkin has looked pretty solid so far this entire series with the New Jersey Devils, made 76 saves in 3 games. In the regular season, we've seen Yaroslav Halak, too. I don't like to use the term backup goalie because it's like not really a backup in my mind, but you can also use him, too, if there's his point in the playoffs, you want to give Igor a rest. You can throw Halak there. He's proved himself powerful. So with the team as stacked as New York, they have a pretty good chance to make it all the way.
I really hate agreeing with you on this one, Adrianna Gallucci, because I just cannot stand the New York Rangers. However, right now they do look like the best team out of the East. Come on. Vladimir Tarasenko is playing so well. that power play. We already mentioned Chris Kreider's got 4 power play goals in this series alone so far. They've been absolutely dominant. We'll see how this series continues to go on. But you mentioned super team, and I always love to bring this up because the Rangers had super teams way back in the early 2010s, and they got an exact whopping 0 cups out of those teams. We'll see if this year is any different. And for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I love the Maple Leafs so far. I really, really do believe that this could be the year that they finally get over that hump and finally get out of the first round. I've been saying it ever since probably the beginning of April. I think I've been saying that I really like the Toronto Maple Leafs come out of that series. Granted, they have led every series 2-1 so far in the last few years and have lost all those. So we'll see how it goes. But I think both of those are great picks, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. It hasn't even been a full round of the Stanley Cup playoffs yet, and yet the action has never been more intense. Will Seattle or Carolina continue to ride the hot hand and win it all? Or will one of Edmonton or the Devils finally turn things around in time to make a deep push? Only time will tell, but until then, that is all we have for this Stanley Cup playoff edition of Penn State Sports Night. For Adrianna Gallucci and Jacob Cheris, I'm Josh Bartosik, and we hope you have a great rest of your night and a fantastic summer.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.